Hi, friends. Welcome. My name is Cyn Lagos, and today I'm going to be your visual mentor for this amazing new journey of Adobe Photoshop challenges. So, really, really cool because I love exploring Photoshop, and we're going to get to explore something different every week. So, I'm excited to take on this journey with y'all. And today we're going to be exploring how to create a collage. Collage is a very special art form, in my opinion, that can really translate differently when you step into a digital space. And I say that because a lot of collaging evolved from analog, right? Like tearing up paper, tearing up pictures. And I found myself doing something of the likes just to try to understand this medium a little bit better. So, we're going to learn how to approach this collaging art form here on Photoshop with some different techniques. So, I'm excited to jump in. So, open up your Photoshop and let's jump right in and explore. All right. So as we are here in my desktop, right, we also have right before us a interesting goodie that you are going to get for free here on this challenge because you got to give to get, right? And this is how it works. So I love this because these are some of my favorite prompts that I've been able to kind of just craft. And I would love for you to try them on your own because part of how we're going to approach collaging today is going to be by generating AI images, or what I like to call ingredients that we'll introduce into our collaging. So try some of these prompts yourself and see what you get. And hopefully, this inspires you to start something really interesting, dynamic, and hopefully a little bit surreal, right, of your own. So let's go into Photoshop. And I'm going to be in Photoshop beta. I am definitely testing Photoshop and Photoshop beta quite frequently. And right now, I find myself in Photoshop beta just exploring all the new features all the time. So here we are. You can always open up this file in Photoshop just as well. By the way, there's no funky workflow there. So, what we're going to be creating today is going to be something like this, or an iteration of this in reality, because it's not going to always generate the same thing, right? Because a lot of these elements were AI generated. So, I'll leave it up to you to guess which were generated AI, because some of them are going to surprise you, I say. So, I'm going to show you how I built this. Let's dive right into it. And we're going to talk about how we're going to get all of these different dynamic variations. Isn't that cool? All right. So let's get started here. Okay. So we have here a setup. I've set this up in the style in which I think it's going to be best for me to start building this collage. So I have some portraits here that I've chosen, and I've chosen them specifically into different scales, and I've already turned them black and white. You can do that by going into Image, Adjustment, Black and White, which also has a shortcut, by the way, or Shift Command U if you don't worry about what kind of black and white. There's very many variations. So now I have two different images that are going to be more or less my hero images, right? You want two hero images of sorts. So you've got this one and you've got a smaller version. That's going to be important, whichever one you choose. Now, I have my contextual bar here, and what I love about it is that it understands that these are some of the steps that I may take next because I'm sitting on a rasterized file, which could be maybe I want to select the subject, maybe I want to remove a background. And in fact, it's right. I want to remove the background of this subject, or I can select it as well. But if you find yourself looking at this and it looks different, that is because that bar is called a contextual bar for a reason. It moves in the context of whatever you're working on. And that's going to generate different remarks, basically, that are going to prompt you to do a different action. So here it tells me if I want to generate a background, which in fact I can, or if I want to import an image, and all of these different variations. So pay attention to that because that's really cool to become familiar with. So as I'm here, I'm going to increase this right about there and decrease this and put it in the foreground. And I think I'm going to also flip it horizontally so it's facing outwards. When you flip something horizontally, just watch out. There's no text or type that just became completely illegible once you turned it or flipped it. So you can see here there's some areas that didn't go so well in this tidbit. So what's okay about this process is that you're able to always access that mask. So I can bring back some of the detail or information without having to worry that I'm going to lose all that information once it removes my background. It removes the background, but it kind of stores it safely away, right? So I might want to do something like this to just bring back those areas I want using the color white, right? So that's the way I'm going to go about it. And I can also revise any other areas that don't work for me. So holding Alt or Option there, it's going to give you that visibility. So now my thumb is back. Awesome. It's nice to have a thumb back. So I'm going to play around with these a little bit and add some funky effects here. I'm going to add a sort of cutout element because now we're navigating how this would be if it was an analog image, right? Like if I had actually copied and pasted this or cut this out of a magazine. So I'm going to make the selection. It made a shape for me, which I don't actually need. And I'm going to fill that mask in that area with black so it removes it. But it's only going to store it safely, as we said before. So when it comes to this area, I want to pretend it's hollow, right? Like there's some kind of whimsicalness to it, and it has a shape of its own, has kind of this thing going on. We don't want to go too over, maybe something like that. Ooh. And I think here is actually a good opportunity to reshape that selection that you made too. So maybe like this, right about there. Okay, I'm gonna leave that there, I think. Yes. And I'm gonna change that color to maybe something more vibrant, maybe a yellow, and hit that backspace. And now we've got that effect in there. I can make it a little bit smaller, right? And of course, detail-oriented steps here for sure. So I got that cool effect, and I can do it one more time here, hitting the P again to, I'm gonna sacrifice this bracelet here and just I'm sorry. I love that bracelet, but it's gotta go today because I want even space between the selections. And doing the same thing, I'm gonna fill that with black. And again, I'm gonna create a shape that makes it appear like it's hollow. And so that's gonna be with the pen tool. I love using the pen tool. And I'm going to make this maybe a different color, right? We can try a different color for this one. Oh, didn't I select a different color? You were there. You saw me. Okay. So Command backspace and voila, we got this kind of cut out effect in it. And that looks so much better. So now something I wanted to show you about that cutout effect and how we can translate that over in my experimentation of collaging. I found myself also exploring things like this. I wanted to show you this collaging because it is in essence how collaging was born. You really just cut out the different pieces and create these hollow spaces, these negative spaces that can go over just about anything. And they can be really, really fun to play with, right? So I put it over this print here. And it was fun because my wife and I were playing around with collaging at a point here because it's got really fun. And she picked this copy right here that says, shift your outlook. And so that's nice because that's our type element of our design. When I put this together, I really had to think about scale here too, because as in this process, it's a little bit different because we have to cut out and decisively pick our ingredients. And that is going to then be redefined by our layout because I can easily put this instead in the center. And this becomes a far brand new artwork, right? So it gives you a different sense of appreciation for collaging in a different way. So if I move on back to much easier grounds, which is going to be our Photoshop space, you're going to see that here we're able to make those cutouts so much simpler. We don't have to worry about selecting ingredients that we don't want and not having other options. And what I mean by that is if we move away from portraits now, we're going to start to have to build this environment. So I love in collaging, I love exploring a base where my center focus is going to be in and an environment. So we're going to build that up with generative fill. Things that we can't do in paper collaging, which is quite wonderful to explore, right? So under here, those are my textures, by the way, which we will talk about. So under here, what I could do is I can select an area to start adding elements to, but I don't want this to give me any contextual generation. What I mean by that is I don't want it to use that as it generates. I don't want it to use it as information. So I'd rather use a blank canvas. So I turned off the other ones and I'm going to generate clouds here. And that's it. That's all I will be generating in this one. And what's really peculiar about this process is that when it comes to generative fill, anything can happen. We can be generating just about anything. You give it a small guide, but then it can create a variation of that is different every time, right? So I love being able to do that though, because that leaves it for a lot of room for spontaneity. If that word. And I think it's super cool to explore. So I've got this layer here that got generated without being influenced by my work. And now I can bring it over maybe down here and delete this mask. It comes with a mask, but we don't need it. Add black, bring back our background in our portraits, and start brushing in that cloud. So we're basically like hanging out in a cloud of sorts, right? So we're going to do something like this. And ideally, I think it's best if you generate a cloud on black, or a cloud. Yeah, a cloud on black. So basically all the white clouds on a black background. That's going to be cool because it's going to blend better with all of the rest of your assets. But here, this blue is not looking too bad, I gotta say. But I'm able to bring those clouds in a subtly natural way where it just sort of fades here on the edges. Awesome. And if you are trying it in Photoshop yourself, let me know what kind of cloud did you get if you know your clouds, Let me see here, but maybe remove that a little bit. So I'm just toggling between black and white, Shift X to toggle. And then also just making sure that I'm painting the mask, not my artwork. And that's going to be cool. But what's interesting here that we don't get in paper collaging is going to be this right here. So this is telling me that it's still a generative fill file. So essentially, I can still generate other types of clouds. So I can still write here on black background. and let that create a new variation, my mask will still be the mask. It may be a good fit for this new generation. It may not be, but what's so interesting is that we're able to create dynamic elements. Okay, so I went with a kind of illustrated black cloud. Not what I was hoping for at all, but I can still create different variations, right? Like if I'm just going to generate clouds there because I think the blue is just fine. But you want to create at least 3 different generations. I find that in the 3rd generation, it often creates something different. It might be, you can see what I'm saying by this cloud right here. I'm just going to investigate this really quick with you. I'm going to disable this layer mask. This cloud is being influenced by this environment. And that's kind of what I meant by when I generated the cloud on its own without having the influence of the background. This is what would have happened otherwise. So let's undo all those. That's what's happening as I'm talking to you. I'm discovering that, and it's so interesting to navigate. So just know that as you generate, you might want to generate on white to be able to not have too strong of an influence on your generation. So I think I'm going to go back to the first one here. Go back to properties, Windows, properties. There you are. Okay. So in Windows properties, I've got my clouds. I think I like those best. And in here, I'm going to continue generating elements, ingredients, as I like to call them. And so I'm going to, same as before, delete some of these, not delete, turn them off with the eye. And now that I've created clouds, now the next one is plants or foliage. So in here, I can just select everything, Command A, and I'm going to say a tropical plants, leaves, floating. So let's do that. Let's see what we get here. I want to create different variations of the background, and always read this copy here because it says only select what you want to change to be able to influence it. Absolutely agree. So you can see all these are the variations that we got. So these are good candidates for creating texture, the texture that you saw earlier, to vary your design fairly quickly. And I'll show you in a little bit how we can do that. So as we generate a few more here, I can say on a black background, which I forgot to do, background. I've gotten faster at typing, folks, because of this, which is so funny. It's true. It's absolutely true. So we got now 2 variations, and we're going to some candidates for texture for sure, but I also want some independent ones. So these are good independent ones, I think. So if I was to use maybe, I don't know why it's on the border, but it kind of looks like it's something that could work with us. So we've got clouds here. Let's generate one more thing before we use that. And we wanted to create a moon. For this moon, I can actually say, hey, I want a circular element. So I might select only a circle and call it moon on black background. You can start to see there's a pattern here, right? So I'm going to let that run and generate a moon, hopefully a full moon, because I did not write that. Oh, okay. So we got some variations of moons here. Okay, that one looks like a good candidate for us. So we got our moon, we got our foliage, we've got our clouds, and I think I wanted to create some birds. So what if we do that by just selecting a spot, a smaller spot, I'm going to say, and create birds flying in black background. Birds flying, group of birds. I'll write a group of birds. There you go. And it also tells me here to remove the content, try generating without a prompt. So you don't always have to write a prompt in this one. It's definitely really good at substituting text. Oh, these are beautiful birds. We got some really cool options. The birds do look kind of funky, I'll be honest. So oftentimes I use them as silhouettes because the birds don't quite have like a head or a face sometimes. So silhouettes is a little bit less discernible. So I think that works for me. All right. So we've got birds, we got a moon, we've got plants, we got texture, clouds. We've got so many cool stuff here. So for example, what I meant by changing the color modes, this texture is so cool when you start introducing elements from this category of the color modes. So hue and saturation. Look at this. This looks completely different. Super cool. Let's keep those clouds on there. And we're going to hit it with a screen or a multiply. And that looks so much better. It starts to blend in a lot better, I think, with the rest of our elements. So as you can see, the texture can get really cool if you play around. Look at this one. This looks awesome. I absolutely love anything under this category right here. Difference, exclusion, subtract, divide. Those are all so awesome because they change depending on the area you're in. For example, the highlights, the midtones, and shadows are in a different hue. So you can see when I put it over me in any area that has shadows, it tends to have a different color palette. But we'll bring it down so it's not affecting our portrait, and we'll just put it over our background. There you go. So now we've got more contrast on our portrait again, and I'm going to bring in some additional elements. So down in our textures, we also have, in our ingredients, we also have a moon, and we have these really cool birds. So I'm going to go again here and rasterize this layer. Rasterize here, Command, apply that layer mask, Command U, Shift Command U, and then we're going to create that contrast so that we can really divide the black and white. So it's really fairly obvious. And from here, we can hit it with screen if we want it in white. If we wanted it in black, we can hit Command I by itself. And that's going to reverse it essentially. And we can do multiply instead. And we see the black variation, which I think is a little bit better because it looks more attuned to showing more of the dimension of the bird. So hit Command M to increase that contrast again, to really remove that faded gray circle that was there. Did you see it there? It's there. Now it's not, right? So that's how you do that. So now we've incorporated some birds, maybe one too many. I'm going to select a few here. And those would be my birds that I will go with. I think I'll select this batch minus this little thing. And that's just using the lasso tool there. And we'll add white, black to that mask, and that will hide the rest of them. So let's go here, Shift Command I, and add black. Is that my bird? Where are you, bird? Okay, so where's my bird? I just lost that file. Okay, there it is. Okay, so we don't have a mask on that one. That's what that was there. I'm going to grab these folks right here, minus this, and I'm just going to hit that mask. Boom. Now just those birds are visible. And we're going to then add in here, I bet you to know the hands were not generated. The hands were not generated. It's wild. But we're going to use the same method. We're going to go to adjustment, hit it with black and white, and I'm going to do kind of a red contrast, a red filter here, and do Command M again to increase that contrast between it so we have more texture. All right, you know what? Maybe too much, maybe a little less. I think that looks good. All right. So we're going to separate these two files, these two hands. We're going to copy, paste, and then grab this hand. I think I don't want this area though. Okay, copy, paste. So now we have our hands. Ooh, did I copy it? No. Copy, paste. There you go. So now we have hand 1, and now we have hand 2, right? So now we can move them around, but wait, they have this strange background and we don't want that. So remove background, quick and easy, using that contextual bar and using the AI tool and having a mask available should we need to retouch it, because it looks like this one really needs retouching. It wasn't too good at that one, but even if you want to bring some of the details back, that could be a way to do that. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this first. So we're going to zoom in here and create a bit of a Sistine Chapel effect, essentially. So I'm going to go here. It's not quite an effect. I know it's a masterpiece. We can't reduce it to an effect. So we're going to go into the section, and much like we did before, we're going to mimic that depth with a little graphic that it's going to have that look, and make sure to add maybe one more anchor there so I can make this a little bit better. I think this went, woo, it went way back. Hold Alt to toggle between the different selection tools. I often do that. I think that's super easy to access all the different ways that you can grab those anchors. So that's going to be helpful. And as I go in here, I'm just trying to fit it so it makes sense, right? Boom. So that works for that one. And in this case, the second hand didn't do a great job, but we can help it out, I think. So we're going to grab this lasso tool here and simply make a kind of rough selection here. A pretty rough selection all around, really, just for us to continue on our project. But we'll be able to revisit it with a little bit more detail. But this isn't a super hyper detail. It's just to get you started. And essentially, the mask is the game changer element here. Because if you add, oh, make sure you don't have any feathering, by the way, for this to work any close to good. And we can do that. Oh, I think I added feathering from the beginning. But you can also use a brush, by the way, and brush it without any harness. Oh, completely 100% harness. Shift X, and that can help you delete some of those areas too, because we're using this mask, right? So you can see there, and you can revisit it and do sort of the attention to detail to make it better if that remove background didn't work for you. So I'm going to grab that second hand, do the same thing, enlarge it maybe up to there, and do another shape right here for myself for this hand to look slightly, I think I did that too angular, too straight to make it look like it's dimensional. Okay, so I'm making some funky circles there. I'm not taking it too easy, but those are my hands there, and they get to create this kind of cool effect, like you're pointing towards something, which is really interesting. I've got some type ready for day 2, where we're going to be exploring typography, and it's going to look super cool to incorporate any type of distressed font into this text. So definitely play around with it. Once you get to day 2, come back to this design and find ways of incorporating it with color modes, because that's what I did in this one, and it looks so, so cool. Absolutely love it. By the way, you also have with you these options here. So let me go into texture. You have options to create and continue to generate different textures. So if I was to generate, let's say, this texture, which essentially all I asked here was flowers falling or leaves falling, you can change that to difference to any of these modes and create something brand new just by adding those levels or elements of texture. So definitely try it out. And just to give you a quick summary here, we explored different color modes. We explored different textures and ways to cut out all of our elements and all of our different ingredients and blend them all together. Remember, collaging is a space where you get to experiment and explore and try out this really cool art practice that has been going on for a very long time, but try it in a new space, in a new medium. So, folks, my name is Cyn Lagos. I would love to see you on the next Photoshop challenges happening every week. So I hope to see you there. Keep up with the resources and assets for this challenge, and I'll see you on the other side. Bye.